School is officially back in season, so let's paint a school bus. To do my background, I'm actually going to take a large Pouncer today and get some sky colors. I'm going to take light blue, teal, and white together, all on the sponge at the same time, and just start bouncing it all across the top of my canvas. This is an 11 by 14 canvas board today. You could use any size you want. And I'm just dipping into a different combination of those colors each time, bouncing it as I go and blending it in. This is going to give a really neat texture effect to the sky. If you want it to be brighter in some areas, like clouds, you could blend in a little bit more white. And I'm going to bring it all the way across and make sure it comes down a little over halfway. When you're finished, dry the sky really good and grab a mop brush so you can paint the ground. I'm going to take some dark green, overlap over top of the sky a little bit, and then do back and forth strokes all the way to the bottom of the canvas. There's our ground. Now the bus needs something to drive on, so let's dry that layer really good, and then grab some brown with a little bit of white. I'm going to draw a road just by doing a back and forth stroke in the middle of my grass. See how I'm leaving a little bit of grass behind the road? And then you can make it as wide as you want, but I want to make sure I have some grass behind the road and grass in front of the road. And while we have the brown paint, let's paint a couple apple trees. I'm going to take a smaller round brush, make a trunk, and then paint a couple branches. You can design it however you want, but when I think of school starting, I think of September, which is apple season. So maybe the school bus is passing an apple orchard on the way to school. Let's paint another tree on the left side of that one. And when you're finished with your trees, don't forget to add a couple highlights with some tan paint on the trunks. Now to add the leaves, grab a paper towel. Instead of my sponge today, especially if you don't have a sponge, this is a way to add leafy texture. Just crumple up the paper towel and dip into some dark and light green. This is going to create a leaf effect. All you have to do then, make sure the trees are dry, just tap, tap, tap over top of the branches, and that makes it look like it has leaves growing on it. So grow them as far as you want, and then let them dry. I'm going to wait to do the apples until later, but let's add some grass now that we have the green paint. Let's keep it simple today and do the fan brush method. Just dip the tip of your fan brush into some dark and light green together, and then all across the dark green that we added before. Don't do it in the road, but do little upward strokes. Make sure to get across the bottom of your trees, and then bring it down all the way to the bottom. You can brush it up in front of the road a little bit on the bottom half because it would be growing up a little bit more. And then you can alternate between the dark and the light green to add highlighting and shading wherever you need to. So I'm going to do that all across here. See how I left a space in the back? You don't have to worry too much about the middle because your bus is going to be covering that, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Speaking of the bus, I am adding a little bit of a shadow on my road with one of my large round brushes. I just put a little bit of black in with my brown, and I'm doing some back and forth strokes. This is going to be slightly offset to the left of my bus because the sun is shining down on it, leaving a dark shadow. Once it's dry, we can start our bus shape. We're going to paint it in white first using a large round brush. I'm going to start with a long line. We're going to make a rectangle for the main section of the bus. I'm going to curve my top edges a little bit. You could make them all pointed if you want a pointy bus. I'm going to fill that shape in just with white paint. That way we're going to be able to paint it a bright yellow school bus color later. Once you have that filled in then, for the front of the bus, we're doing just the side profile. I'm going to do a smaller rectangle coming off for the front. Fill that in with white as well, and then dry it so you can fill it in. Now, school bus yellow is more of a deeper yellow, so I'm mixing a little bit of orange in with my bright yellow, and I'm going to fill in that entire shape. You may need to do a couple coats of paint, especially if you're using acrylic craft paint, because the yellow is very thin. But once you fill it in how you want it, this is the main shape we're going to add the details to. So the first detail is going to be a tire. So we're going to add two circles, one on the back end towards the bottom and one towards the front end at the bottom of that little rectangle that we made. I'm going to mix a little bit of white into my black and add a little gray circle in the center of each. That's the center of the tire. Fix them up however you want. And we can't forget the bumper, so take a detail brush then. And then I'm going to do a little tiny curved rectangle on the back side of the bus. And then there would be a tiny little rectangle on the front of the bus. There we go. Now, every bus is different. I'm going to take a little bit of white paint and add one of the wheel wells. I'm going to do just like a curved shape around the top of each tire. And then when the white dries, I filled it in with that school bus yellow as well. Now next, let's add windows. Take a smaller round brush. I took blue and white from the sky, but I mixed a little bit of black in with it to give it more of a grayish blue tone. I'm gonna do a long and tall rectangle for the doors and fill that in. That's right next to the front tire. And then don't forget to take a little bit of white, and I'm gonna smudge a little bit on either side of each door to show that it is glass shining. While we have this color, let's do a little rectangle up top here for the windshield. And then same thing, smudge a little bit of white for a reflection. And then I'm gonna do 4 lines evenly spaced if possible for the windows, and then turn those into longer rectangles. These are the windows on the bus. Did you have a seat you liked the best on the school bus? I was homeschooled, so I didn't get to really ride in a school bus, but it looked like fun, and this is what I saw from the outside every day. Fill each of those windows in with the same color. I'm using a flat brush. You could just use your regular brush, but I like to use a flat brush to get a straight edge. And now this is optional, but I'm just taking one of my round brushes and I mixed a little bit of white in my yellow. I'm doing a couple expression strokes in the darker school bus yellow to give it a little bit more dimension, like the sun is also shining on it. Taking a detail brush, you can also smudge a little bit more white onto the windows to make it look like the sun is shining on them as well. And this is also optional, but I like to take a detail brush then with a little bit of black paint and outline things like my windows and any of the straight edges. Take your time with it. You could use a paint pen or a Sharpie if you don't have as quite a steady hand like I do. Maybe gonna do the wheel wells. And then, let's see, school buses I've seen have stripes on the side. So I'm gonna do a long, thicker black line. Let's do 2 of them right across. Let's do a thinner one. Let's do a third one down at the bottom here. You could use tape or a ruler if you want when you're doing these lines. That's up to you. And don't forget an octagon for a stop sign. Let's see, I'm gonna shape that, maybe make it a little bit bigger. And then once you fill it in, don't forget to outline that with a little bit of black paint as well. All ideas here. Let's see, don't forget a mirror on the side. I just did a little black shape. How about one of those circle mirrors that come down from the windshield? And then while we have the dark red, don't forget to add lights all over. I always like the school bus lights, especially at night. So I know they had red ones everywhere and also some orange ones. I don't know if they're all uniform or not, but I am going to write school bus on the side of my bus as well, in between the 2 biggest black lines. Don't forget a little stripe at the bottom, and let's do the line in between the doors nice and thin so the kids can get out. There we go. How about a couple pops of white highlights, especially along the black so it's not quite as dark. And I'm also going to do a little white outline in here in the inside edge and write the word stop. There we go. Safety first, kids. I'm going to outline the top side of my bus. I wasn't going to outline it all the way, but it is cute. It's more of a cartoony bus, but that's okay. We're going easy today. And we can't forget the apples on the apple tree. So I'm actually going to take the back end of a new pencil eraser back to school. This is a perfect time to do this. Use it like a stamp and you can add little apples in the tree. An easy concept, but really makes it pop. I'm also going to do maybe a couple that fell down on the ground. There we go. And I even mix a little bit of yellow in with some of my red. You know, the 2-tone apples, you could mix those in there as well. We're down to final touches. This is where you can take your detail brush and add little strokes of grass. I'm just doing some light green and dark green in different areas. Don't forget to add a few in front of the apples that fell on the ground. And as a final touch, clean off your Pouncer from the beginning. I put yellow and white paint on it. Press down and twist like a stamp, and there's a sun for a sunny day of school. If you like this tutorial, make sure to watch my beginner apple painting I did for back to school as well. And I hope I get to see how all of your school bus paintings turn out. Have fun and happy back to school.